Book 3, Part 2 of the Aeneid. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. The Aeneid by Publius Vergilius Maro, translated by John Dryden. Book 3. Sea Wanderings and Strange Meetings, Part 2. When parted hence, the wind that ready waits for Sicily shall bear you to the straits, where proud Pelorus opes a wider way. Tack to the larboard and stand off to sea. Veer starboard, sea and land, the Italian shore, and far Sicilia's coast were one before. An earthquake caused the flow, the roaring tides, the passage broke that land from land divides, and where the lands retir'd, the rushing ocean rides, distinguish'd by the straits on either hand. Now rising cities in long order stand, and fruitful fields, so much can time invade the mouldering work that beauteous nature made. Far on the right her dogs foul Scylla hides, Charybdis roaring on the left presides, and in her greedy whirlpool sucks the tides, then spouts them from below. With fury driven, the waves mount up and wash the face of heaven. But Scylla from her den, with open jaws, the sinking vessel in her eddy draws, then dashes on the rocks, and human face, a virgin bosom, hides her tail's disgrace. Her parts obscene below the waves descend, with dogs enclos'd, and in a dolphin end. 'Tis safer then to bear aloof to sea, and coast Pachynus, tho' with more delay, than once to view misshapen Scylla near, and the loud yell of wat'ry wolves to hear. Besides, if faith to Helenus be due, and if prophetic Phoebus tell me true, do not this precept of your friend forget, which therefore more than once I must repeat. Above the rest great Juno's name adore, pay vows to Juno, Juno's aid implore. Let gifts be to the mighty queen design'd, and mollify with pray'rs her haughty mind. Thus at the length your passage shall be free, and you shall safe descend on Italy. Arriv'd at Cyme, when you view the flood of black Avernus and the sounding wood, the mad prophetic Sibyl you shall find, dark in a cave and on a rock reclin'd. She sings the fates, and in her frantic fits the notes and names inscrib'd to leaves commits. What she commits to leaves, in order laid, before the cavern's entrance are display'd. Unmov'd they lie, but if a blast of wind without, or vapours issue from behind, the leaves are borne aloft in liquid air, and she resumes no more her museful care, nor gathers from the rocks her scatter'd verse, nor sets in order what the winds disperse. Thus many not succeeding, most upbraid the madness of the visionary maid, and with loud curses leave the mystic shade. Think it not loss of time a while to stay, though thy companions chide thy long delay. Though summon'd to the seas, though pleasing gales invite thy course, and stretch thy swelling sails, but beg the sacred priestess to relate with willing words, and not to write thy fate. The fierce Italian people she will show, and all thy wars, and all thy future woe. And what thou must avoid, and what must undergo, she shall direct thy course, instruct thy mind, and teach thee how the happy shores to find. This is what Heav'n allows me to relate. Now part in peace, pursue thy better fate, and raise by strength of arms the Trojan state. This when the priest with friendly voice declar'd, he gave me license, and rich gifts prepar'd. Bounteous of treasure, he supplied my want with heavy gold and polish'd elephant. Then Dodonean caldrons put on board, and every ship with sums of silver stored. A trusty coat of mail to me he sent, thrice chain'd with gold for use and ornament. The helm of Pyrrhus added to the rest, that flourish'd with a plume and waving crest. Nor was my sire forgotten, nor my friends, and large recruits he to my navy sends. Men, horses, captains, arms, and warlike stores, supplies new pilots, and new sweeping oars. Meantime my sire commands to hoist our sails, lest we should lose the first auspicious gales. The prophet bless'd the parting crew, and last, with words like these, his ancient friend embrac'd: "Old happy man, the care of gods above, whom heav'nly Venus honour'd with her love, and twice preserv'd thy life when Troy was lost, behold from far the wish'd Ausonian coast. Their land, but take a larger compass round, for that before is all forbidden ground. The shore that Phoebus has design'd for you at farther distant lies, conceal'd from view. Go happy hence, and seek your new abodes, blest in a son, and favour'd by the gods. For I with useless words prolong your stay, when southern gales have summon'd you away." Nor less the queen our parting thence deplor'd, nor was less bounteous than her Trojan lord. A noble present to my son she brought, a robe with flowers on golden tissue wrought, a Phrygian vest, and loads with gifts beside, of precious texture and of Asian pride. "Accept," she said, "these monuments of love, which in my youth with happier hands I wove. Regard these trifles, for the giver's sake; 'tis the last present Hector's wife can make. Thou call'st my lost Astyanax to mind; in thee his features and his form I find. His eyes so sparkled with a lively flame, such were his motions, such was all his frame. And ah, had Heav'n so pleas'd, his years had been the same." With tears I took my last adieu, and said: "Your fortune, happy pair, already made, leaves you no farther wish. My diff'rent state, avoiding one, incurs another fate. To you a quiet seat the gods allow; you have no shores to search, no seas to plow, nor fields of flying Italy to chase deluding visions and a vain embrace. You see another Simois, and enjoy the labour of your hands, another Troy, with better auspice than her ancient tow'rs, and less obnoxious to the Grecian pow'rs. If e'er the gods, whom I with vows adore, conduct my steps to Tiber's happy shore; if ever I ascend the Latian throne, and build a city I may call my own, as both of us our birth from Troy derive, so let our kindred lines in concord live, and both in acts of equal friendship strive. Our fortunes, good or bad, shall be the same; the double Troy shall differ but in name. That what we now begin may never end, but long to late posterity descend. Near the Ceraunian rocks our course we bore, the shortest passage to the Italian shore. Now had the sun withdrawn his radiant light, and hills were hid in dusky shades of night. We land, and on the bosom of the ground a safe retreat and a bare lodging found. Close by the shore we lay; the sailors keep their watches, and the rest securely sleep. The night, proceeding on with silent pace, stood in her noon, and view'd with equal face her steepy rise and her declining race. Then wakeful Palinurus rose to spy the face of heav'n and the nocturnal sky, and listen'd every breath of air to try, observes the stars, and notes their sliding course, the Pleiads, Hyads, and their wat'ry force. And both the Bears is careful to behold, and bright Orion arm'd with burnish'd gold. Then, when he saw no threat'ning tempest nigh, but a sure promise of a settled sky, he gave the sign to weigh. We break our sleep, forsake the pleasing shore, and plow the deep. And now the rising morn with rosy light adorns the skies, and put the stars to flight. When we from far, like bluish mist, descry the hills, and then the plains of Italy, Achates first pronounc'd the joyful sound, then Italy the cheerful crew rebound. My sire Anchises crown'd a cup with wine, and off'ring thus implor'd the pow'rs divine: "Ye gods, presiding over lands and seas, and you who raging winds and waves appease, breathe on our swelling sails a prosperous wind, and smooth our passage to the port assign'd." The gentle gales their flagging force renew, and now the happy harbor is in view. Minerva's temple then salutes our sight, plac'd as a landmark on the mountain's height. We furl our sails, and turn the prows to shore; the curling waters round the galleys roar. The land lies open to the raging east, then, bending like a bow, with rocks compress'd, shuts out the storms. The winds and waves complain, and vent their malice on the cliffs in vain. The port lies hid within on either side; two tow'ring rocks the narrow mouth divide. The temple, which aloft we view'd before, to distance flies, and seems to shun the shore. Scarce landed, the first omens I beheld were four white steeds that cropp'd the flow'ry field. "War, war is threaten'd from this foreign ground," my father cried, "where warlike steeds are found." Yet, since reclaim'd to chariots they submit, and bend to stubborn yokes, and champ the bit, peace may succeed to war. Our way we bend, to Pallas and the sacred hill ascend. There prostrate to the fierce Virago pray, whose temple was the landmark of our way. Each with a Phrygian mantle veil'd his head, and all commands of Helenus obey'd, and pious rites to Grecian Juno paid. These dues perform'd, we stretch our sails, and stand to sea, forsaking that suspected land. From hence Tarentum's base appears in view, for Hercules renown'd, if fame be true. Just opposite Lacinian Juno stands, Caulonian towers, and Scylacian strands. For shipwrecks fear'd, Mount Aetnas thence we spy, known by the smoky flames which cloud the sky. Far off we hear the waves with surly sound invade the rocks their groans rebound. The billows break upon the sounding strand, and roll the rising tide impure with sand. Then thus Anchises, in experience old: "'Tis that Charybdis which the seer foretold, And those promis'd rocks. Bear off to sea." With haste the frighted mariners obey. First Palinurus to the larboard veer'd, Then all the fleet by his example steer'd. To heav'n aloft of ridgy waves we ride, Then down to hell descend, when they divide. And thrice our galleys knock'd the stony ground, And thrice the hollow rocks return'd the sound. And thrice we saw the stars, that stood with dews around. The flagging winds forsook us with the sun, And wearied on Cyclopian shores we run. The port capacious, and secure from wind, Is to the foot of thund'ring Aetna join'd. By turns a pitchy cloud she rolls on high, By turns hot embers from her entrails fly, And flakes of mounting flames, that lick the sky. Oft from her bowels massy rocks are thrown, And, shiver'd by the force, come piecemeal down. Oft liquid lakes of burning sulphur flow, Fed from the fiery springs that boil below. Enceladus, they say, transfix'd by Jove, With blasted limbs came tumbling from above; And where he fell, th' avenging Father drew This flaming hill, and on his body threw. As often as he turns his weary sides, He shakes the solid isle, and smoke the heavens hides. In shady woods we pass the tedious night, Where bellowing sounds and groans our souls affright, Of which no cause is offer'd to the sight; For not one star was kindled in the sky, Nor could the moon her borrow'd light supply. For misty clouds involv'd the firmament, The stars were muffled, and the moon was pent. Scarce had the rising sun the day reveal'd, Scarce had his heat the pearly dews dispell'd, When from the woods there bolts before our sight, Somewhat betwixt a mortal and a sprite; So thin, so ghastly meager, and so wan, So bare of flesh, he scarce resembled man. This thing, all tatter'd, seem'd from far t' implore Our pious aid, and pointed to the shore. We look behind, then view his shaggy beard; His clothes were tagg'd with thorns, and filth his limbs besmear'd. The rest his mien, in habit and in face, Appear'd a Greek, and such indeed he was. He cast on us from far a frightful view, Whom soon for Trojans and for foes he knew; Stood still and paus'd, then all at once began To stretch his limbs, and trembled as he ran. Soon as approach'd, upon his knees he falls, And thus with tears and sighs for pity calls: "Now, by the pow'rs above, and what we share From nature's common gift, this vital air, O Trojans, take me hence! I beg no more, But bear me far from this unhappy shore. 'Tis true, I am a Greek, and farther own, Among your foes besieg'd th' imperial town. For such demerits, if my death be due, No more for this abandon'd life I sue. This only favour let my tears obtain, To throw me headlong in the rapid main. Since nothing more than death my crime demands, I die content, to die by human hands." He said, and on his knees my knees embrac'd. I bade him boldly tell his fortune past, His present state, his lineage, and his name, The occasion of his fears, and whence he came. The good Anchises rais'd him with his hand, Who, thus encourag'd, answer'd our demand: "From Ithaca, my native soil, I came To Troy, and Achaemenides my name. Me my poor father with Ulysses sent; O had I stay'd, with poverty content! But fearful for themselves, my countrymen left me forsaken in the Cyclops' den. The cave, tho' large, was dark; the dismal floor Was pav'd with mangled limbs and putrid gore. Our monstrous host, of more than human size, Erects his head, and stares within the skies, Bellowing his voice, and horrid is his hue. Ye gods, remove this plague from mortal view! The joints of slaughter'd wretches are his food, And for his wine he quaffs the streaming blood. These eyes beheld, when with his spacious hand He seiz'd 2 captives of our Grecian band. Stretch'd on his back, he dash'd against the stones Their broken bodies and their crackling bones. With spouting blood the purple pavement swims, While the dire glutton grinds the trembling limbs. Not unreveng'd Ulysses bore their fate, Nor thoughtless of his own unhappy state. For, gorg'd with flesh, and drunk with human wine, While fast asleep the giant lay supine, Snoring aloud, and belching from his maw His indigested foam, and morsels raw. We pray, we cast the lots, and then surround The monstrous body stretch'd along the ground. Each, as he could approach him, lends a hand To bore his eyeball with a flaming brand. Beneath his frowning forehead lay his eye, For only one did the vast frame supply. But that a globe so large his front it fill'd, Like the sun's disk, or like a Grecian shield. The stroke succeeds, and down the pupil bends. This vengeance follow'd for our slaughter'd friends. But haste, unhappy wretches, haste to fly! Your cables cut, and on your oars rely. Such, and so vast as Polypheme appears, 100 more this hated island bears. Like him in caves they shut their woolly sheep, Like him their herds on tops of mountains keep, Like him with mighty strides they stalk from steep to steep. And now 3 moons their sharpen'd horns renew, Since thus in woods and wilds, obscure from view, I drag my loathsome days with mortal fright, And in deserted caverns lodge by night. Oft from the rocks a dreadful prospect see, Of the huge Cyclops, like a walking tree. From far I hear his thund'ring voice resound, And trampling feet that shake the solid ground. Cornels and salvage berries of the wood, And roots and herbs have been my meager food. While all around my longing eyes I cast, I saw your happy ships appear at last. On those I fix'd my hopes, to these I run. 'Tis all I ask, this cruel race to shun. What other death you please, yourselves bestow. Scarce had he said, when on the mountain's brow We saw the giant shepherd stalk before His following flock, and leading to the shore. A monstrous bulk, deform'd, depriv'd of sight, His staff a trunk of pine, to guide his steps aright. His ponderous whistle from his neck descends, His woolly care their pensive lord attends. This only solace his hard fortune sends. Soon as he reach'd the shore, and touch'd the waves, From his bor'd eye the gutt'ring blood he laves. He gnash'd his teeth, and groan'd thro' seas he strides, And scarce the topmost billows touch'd his sides. Seiz'd with a sudden fear, we run to sea, The cables cut, and silent haste away. The well-deserving stranger entertain, Then buckling to the work, our oars divide the main. The giant hearken'd to the dashing sound, But, when our vessels out of reach he found, He strided onward, and in vain essay'd The Ionian deep, and durst no farther wade. With that he roar'd aloud the dreadful cry, Shakes earth and air, and seas the billows fly. before the bellowing noise to distant Italy. The neighb'ring Aetna trembling all around, the winding caverns echo to the sound. His brother Cyclops hear the yelling roar, and, rushing down the mountains, crowd the shore. We saw their stern, distorted looks from far, and one-eyed glance that vainly threaten'd war. A dreadful council, with their heads on high, the misty clouds about their foreheads fly, not yielding to the tow'ring tree of Jove, our tallest cypress of Diana's grove. New pangs of mortal fear our minds assail; we tug at every oar, and hoist up every sail, and take th' advantage of the friendly gale. Forewarn'd by Helenus, we strive to shun Charybdis gulf, nor dare to Scylla run. An equal fate on either side appears; we, tacking to the left, are free from fears. For from Pelorus' point the North arose, and drove us back where swift Pantagias flows. His rocky mouth we pass, and make our way By Thapsus and Megara's winding bay. This passage Achaemenides had shown, tracing the course which he before had run. Right over against Plemmyrium's wat'ry strand there lies an isle, once call'd th' Ortygian land. Alpheus, as old fame reports, has found From Greece a secret passage underground. By love to beauteous Arethusa led, and mingling here, they roll'd in the same sacred bed. As Helenus enjoin'd, we next adore Diana's name, protectress of the shore. With prosperous gales we pass the quiet sounds Of still Elorus and his fruitful bounds. Then, doubling Cape Pachynus, we survey The rocky shore extended to the sea. The town of Camarine from far we see, A fenny lake, undrain'd by fate's decree. In sight of the Geloan fields we pass, And the large walls where mighty Gela was. Then Agragas, with lofty summits crown'd, Long for the race of warlike steeds renown'd. We pass Selinus and the palmy land, And widely shun the Lilybaean strand, Unsafe for secret rocks and moving sand. At length on shore the weary fleet arriv'd, Which Drepanum's unhappy port receiv'd. Here, after endless labours, often toss'd By raging storms, and driv'n on every coast, My dear, dear father, spent with age, I lost. Ease of my cares, and solace of my pain, Sav'd thro' 1,000 toils, but sav'd in vain. The prophet, who my future woes reveal'd, Yet this, the greatest and the worst, conceal'd. And dire Selene, whose foreboding skill Denounc'd all else, was silent of the ill. This my last labour was: some friendly god From thence convey'd us to our blest abode. Thus to the list'ning queen, the royal guest, His wand'rings course, and all his toils express'd; And here, concluding, he retir'd to rest. End of Book 3 of the Aeneid. Read by Lars Rolander.